the 26th of March. I'm afraid we have a slight technical hitch at the moment in that the screen which will show you which agenda item we're on isn't working. I think we're still working on that, but I can't guarantee that it will be up and running before the end of the meeting. So there are some papers at the back of the room, and I'll make sure that as we go through each item, I make it clear which one we're dealing with. Just a couple of housekeeping points. First of all, the four people at the end of the table here, Wyatt Ramsdale, Natalie Bramall, Cameron McIntosh and Alison Griffiths, are deputy members of the Cabinet, and to that extent, constitutionally, they're not allowed to vote on any of the items. So when we do have a vote at the end of each agenda item, when they don't put their hands up, it's not because they're not interested or not listening or anything else. It's because they cannot vote. In terms of, as they're members of the public here, the fire alarms, there are no drills expected today. So in the event of a fire alarm sounding, everyone is asked please to go out of this suite, which is the Ashcombe suite, walk down the corridor, turn right down the stairs and out of the front entrance of County Hall, which I imagine is where you came in through. And then you're invited to disperse to Kingston Town Centre for 30 minutes of shopping, if that's what you wish to do. But we're not expecting anything, so hopefully there won't be any surprises. And then, secondly, in line with our guidance on the use of social media, you're more than welcome to use any form of social media, provided that it doesn't disturb the business of the meeting. Could I ask, please, that everybody turns their mobile phones to silent, and for members of the public, when you're speaking, would you please come up to the table there, and somebody will help you push the button to turn on the microphone, and if you could hold it, speak to it fairly closely, because the sound system here, I'm afraid, isn't as good perhaps as we would like. So we have a number of items on the agenda today. There are some important items, particularly around the update on the improvement to children's services. As we know, children's services is in a period of transformation, and that update, I think, will I hope, give people confidence to know that the transformation plans are coming along well, and we are starting to see improvement. And the other item that is important to note is the joint health and wellbeing strategy. So we have created a health plan for Surrey, and that is out currently for engagement. It's available on the website, and it will go through for approval, hopefully, to health and wellbeing shortly. But we put it on this agenda to make sure that there is good public awareness of what is a hugely important piece of work. So we'll now move through the main agenda. First of all, apologies for absence. There are no apologies. Secondly, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 26th of February 2019, which are available. Are those agreed? Thank you. Does any member of the Cabinet have any declarations of interest? No? Thank you. Item 4 then, first part of item 4 are members' questions, and we have a question from Hazel Watson. Hazel, do you want to come forward? Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the answer to my question. The figures show that following the introduction of parking charges at Norbury Park, the number of vehicles using these car parks is considerably lower than estimated. Given this failure, will the Cabinet now agree to withdrawing parking charges at Norbury Park so that vehicles use the car parks instead of nearby residential roads? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
Yes. First of all, let me be clear here. The decision to bring in car parking charges was a difficult one, but it was supported by all parties. It wasn't a party issue. This is all parties, including the Liberal Party, but sometimes we forget that, especially in an election year. The reason we brought it in was we needed to look at ways of raising money for the countryside, to protect it for the next 25 years particularly, and to leave in a better condition it is currently. As for Norbury, there are certainly some changes to some of the numbers. But long term, we believe this will increase. There's indications already as the spring comes, numbers are increasing. What I think, Hazel, you failed to realise is that the numbers we used, which were just over 5,000 for the winter months, and we analyse that, if we now wait and choose a month or 3 months in the summer, the figures will be completely different. So no, this Cabinet has no intention of withdrawing the car parking charges. It is working. It will meet its budget of money into the countryside. And over 15 years, nearly £3 million or more will go in to protecting our Surrey countryside. And I think that's a really good thing to do. Thank you.
Mike, do you want to perhaps at this stage mention the Task and Finish group?
Oh, yes.
Or do you want me to?
Yeah. Look, I'm aware also that many people have made their views known in Surrey on this, and I have commented many times as this Cabinet. What I've agreed is that we will, as I did say in the Select Committee now a year ago, that we would review it once the car parking charges have been in, and we would review the way they've operated. And what I'm going to be putting together is, during the summer, is a Task and Finish group that will report back to the Select Committee the lessons learned and also the successful things we need to improve on. So I think that's a good step forward to make sure that we're being totally transparent with these charges.
Hazel, thank you very much. The next question then is from Pauline Robertson, who's the Director of Frimhurst Enterprises CIC. Pauline, is there any supplementary question you would like to ask?
Right, hello, thank you for letting us come. I'd just like to introduce Duncan and Katie, because this is their question really, and I'm just their voice. Following the answer to my question, do you agree that the Equality Impact Assessment is inadequate as it has failed to consider working age adults with cognitive and communication difficulties? It's failed to address the needs of working age adults who lack the skills required to speak to a bus driver and manage money. This group of adults will now have to pay significantly more money than members of the public without disabilities for the same bus journey. This is because at the moment the only available option is the smart card. I have worked out calculations to show the differences, but Duncan currently uses his disabled bus pass on the number 3 bus from Frimley to Frimley Green and back 4 times a week, term time only. With the proposed changes, Duncan cannot get the 9:22 bus as it will arrive too late for work and he won't have his bus pass. So Duncan's option at the moment is to buy a weekly smart card at a cost of £19.80 per week plus a £1 initial charge. Alternatively, the cost of 4 single journeys at Stagecoach's announced half-price rate would be 90p times 4, £3.60. Cost to a member of the public for the same 4 journeys is £4 times £1.75, £7. This gives an additional cost of Duncan for his disability of £12.80 a week. We feel this is discriminating against the most vulnerable in our society. I do go on to give several more examples, and I also just want to address some of the questions that came up. A Helping Hands card would not be enough to help in their situation because they cannot speak and ask where their destination is. It's not reasonable to expect adults to be able to turn up to work late. It's not fair on the rest of the workforce, and I don't think that really should be an option that Surrey County Council should be telling these young people who aspire to get paid jobs. They aspire to get paid jobs because Surrey County Council have given them a very good education and have given the opportunities through direct payments to access transformative day services like Frimhurst Enterprises, which works on independent skills. Katie, when she started accessing Frimhurst Enterprise, relied on a one-to-one support worker to access the bus. Over the course of a year, she decided that she really wanted to do it on her own, and it took many months of shadowing. It took an escape to the Meadows roundabout when she took the wrong number 3 bus, but she still had the gumption to carry on and to be independent. She's fought very hard for this independence, but she needs Surrey County Council to provide the tools to enable her to carry on being independent. She doesn't want to have a support worker accompany her to the bus so she can buy a bus ticket. Duncan and Katie have got some leaflets they would like to give out to you because they'd like to invite the Cabinet to hold an away day at Frimhurst Enterprises and see what these young people do. We can host a conference for free and we can provide lunch at cost. And we've got facilities of large Victorian house set in 7 acres, free parking, and we'd love to host a Cabinet meeting to show you what these youngsters are aspiring to achieve. Thank you. Can Duncan and Katie hand them out now? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Actually, that might be a good option when we move out of County Hall, because we've got nowhere to go currently. So
free parking.
Free parking, even better. Mike, whilst Duncan and Katie are doing that, do you want to address some of those points?
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Pauline. As you know, I came on Friday and met Duncan and Katie. Oh. Sorry. And there is no doubt that the work you do there is inspiring, and it was a great pleasure seeing the children, not the children, the adults in the kitchen as well, cooking the soup for lunch. It really was. And then I went out in the garden and saw the adults preparing the garden. It was really inspiration. Now, the issue that we're faced, or the council was faced, was last year we did consult on the concessionary fares, and at that time we were looking at removing all the concessionary fares for disabled people, because most councils did away with this in 2013 when the PIP, or disabled allowance, came in. We decided in those days not to do it, and then when we consulted, and I think this was a really important consultation we did, we looked at the results from the consultation. We decided we would not do away with it for the whole day. However, we would charge in the morning. What we then did, we spent a long time, 3 months, talking commercially to our suppliers to see if we could come up with a deal that they could reduce the fare for these people in the morning. And I was pleased to announce on Friday the changes for the 3 companies that have reduced the price. I do understand, particularly with Katie, having 2 cards is going to be very difficult, and I am aware that you've already spoken to the service, which I set up on Monday, and we're looking at the opportunity of combining into 1 card. It's going to take us a while to do it, but we think that would certainly be the answer. As for the issue on the qualities, I'd have to examine exactly, because I haven't got it in front of me. For that issue, I think I'd rather write back to you to give you exactly what the service says. But what I can say, this council really recognises the fantastic work that you do and other bodies in Surrey do. And we, as I've said publicly, we will do all we can, the service, to try to bridge the gap to ensure that those people with problems, we try to help them. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Pauline, Duncan and Katie. The next question then is from David Bierman, who is Town Councillor for Waverley and Borough Councillor for Waverley.
Well, yes.
Indeed.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your answer, indeed. And first of all, I would like to say that the work in the garden has now virtually been completed. And it's an excellent job, first-class job, and I would like to commend the County Council for undertaking this project. But we feel that it makes it even more important that this important facility for Farnham and its visitors is now opened to the public as soon as possible, particularly during the summer nights and the weekends when it is currently closed. Looking at the answer we've received, it appears there has not been much recent progress in discussions with Farnham Town Council, of which I am a member. I'm disturbed a little bit by this, and I wondered what was holding this up, because we really would like to see these gardens opened up as quickly as possible so that we can all enjoy the benefits that have been from the investment that Surrey has placed in it.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your comments around the work that's just been carried out. I think that probably it's because of that work that's been happening that we now need to look to move this forward as quickly as we can. So I'm hoping that with the good weather and the gardens looking beautiful, that further impetus will take place, and we'll be looking to move it forward quickly.
Can I just add to that when I was the portfolio holder a year or so ago, I met with the chairman of Farnham Town Council, Carol Coburn, and with Andrew MacLeod, the local county councillor, and at the time the portfolio holder for Waverley Borough Council. And we discussed the works which have now, as you say, nearly been completed. Secondly, the key holder for the gardens. As you know, at the moment it's opened and closed by the library staff, and we said that we were quite happy for the town council to have a key if they were prepared to monitor it. And thirdly, that we as the county council would be happy to hand over the running and the maintenance of those library gardens to the town council. So certainly when I handed over that portfolio, that was my understanding was that the town council would come back to the county council with the decision around that. So I think the ball is probably in your court.
Can I just say that I shall certainly take that ball and I shall try and get the town council to move as quickly as possible. Perfect.
Thank you very much. The next question then is from William Chapman. Mr. Chapman, if you have any supplementary question, thank
you. Firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity. I also would like to thank Mrs. Mooney for having come through just before the meeting and spoken to me about taking the matter further. I'll start off with the question, and then I'm going to give an explanation as to why I'm stating what I have, or the the question which I'm actually going to ask. Is the council prepared to be subpoenaed in a court of law to give the required information, or alternatively to provide the information to Action Fraud where a case number has already been made available? This is the importance of this matter. I will now go and explain as to why this situation has arisen. While I've read through the answer talks about contractual obligations. And I'm not interested in the contractual obligations between the council and the property guardian company or provider known as Camelot. The issue is that I represent not only myself, but also many people who have been former property guardians in not only Pinehurst, but actually the other centres which have been closed down by the council, as well as the Brockhurst one, which is in the process of being closed down. The situation is that guardians have had money subtracted from their deposits on the basis that these services were provided by Camelot to the council. And I have the necessary information which I can claim those services have not been provided. And for this reason, we are dealing with an issue which falls within or let's put it this way, that a legal firm specializing in fraud has in fact been approached, and that the issue that we're dealing with is potential embezzlement.
I think we have to be very careful in terms of making public statements like that. You've asked a question, you've had an answer. If you have a supplementary question, I'd ask you to put it, please.
Which I did, which was saying whether the council is prepared, in fact, to be subpoenaed in a court of law to give the necessary answers.
No, I don't think. This council will face up to its responsibilities, and it will investigate any issues that need investigating. It's not a matter of us agreeing or otherwise to being subpoenaed. I think you've raised the point. We'll take it away and continue to look at it. But I would just urge some caution in terms of making public allegations relating to fraud and embezzlement. I think that we will have a look, and if there is some further information that we need to provide to you, then we will do that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of the public question time. We now move on to item 4.6, petitions. There are no petitions. For D, are there any representations received on reports to be considered in private? There weren't any. And then item 5, reports from select committees. We have a letter from Dr. Grant Duff, who is chairman of the Health Commissioning and Integration Select Committee. And I think you're going to address the Cabinet on that letter. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you. This is with regards to the draft Health and Wellbeing Strategy, which is an item further in your agenda this afternoon, item 10. You will be aware that the strategy has undergone a period of public engagement with stakeholders given an opportunity to comment, and so Surrey County Council Health Integration and Commissioning Select Committee had an opportunity at its last meeting to look at the strategy, comment, and we had 2 senior officers with us, as I say in my letter, to help us and answer the questions that we had. So with your consent, Leader, what I propose to do is to elaborate on the points that we summarily put in the letter, and to help Cabinet by explaining the context of our scrutiny exercise. The committee undoubtedly recognised that this was an unprecedented collaborative exercise that led to the development of the strategy, and that included voluntary organisations and providers of health and social care. And the objective is ultimately to have a system architecture and a proper assurance framework so that we have a strategy that can further be implemented and delivered. The committee welcomed also the recognition of the needs of the Surrey's population as formulated in the introduction of the strategy. And we read very clearly that there is an estimated 23,000 children who are living with deprivation and 10,600 young people aged between 5 and 15 who have estimated mental health needs. So it is a very well focused strategy in that respect. I think we had further, when looking at it, we had 3 main areas of concern, so I will be covering one at a time. Regarding
governance, the strategy recognises that the system, as described, will have to build capabilities so that the implementation can be assured and the outcomes can be achieved and so on. And it also recognises that ultimately the responsibilities will lie on partnerships with different partners expected to make different contributions. So our concern is that that somewhat may dilute accountability, and that the strategy at the moment gives no details, no specific details on accountability. I appreciate that this is a concern regarding the future implementation, and we are looking at the overall draft at the moment. So that was a very specific concern. We noticed the 3 priorities, and in relation to that, the outcomes. So one of our suggestions would be that there should be a single organisation accountable for each priority and each outcome within each priority, for example. Next concern is to do with mental health. And of course, absolutely we recognise that one of the priorities is emotional well-being and mental health. So that's very clearly set out at the beginning, which is absolutely excellent. But thereafter, the strategy has very little to say about mental health, and until we get to the last stage where 2 specific outcomes in relation to mental health are mentioned. So it seems that there are gaps to do with mental health that need to be filled in before the strategy is complete. Certainly that was our perception. Now, in terms of mental health, I mentioned the mental health needs of young people as recognised in the introduction, or appreciate they're estimated. But it's also clear that the NHS 10-year plan has very specific commitments to increase funding for children and young people's mental health, and overall there is a figure of 2.3 billion that are expected to be spent a year on mental health. So considering that, we reason that we should be more specific as to mental health, and particularly mental health provision for young people within the strategy. And so for us it was a point of great concern. Of course, I appreciate that we as a county council, only at our last meeting, have looked at our own emotional well-being and mental health strategy for young people, which is absolutely an excellent step forward. And in there are promises of strong leadership, and there are promises of co-design, and there are promises of clear points of contact and so on. So all that ties in with accountability. So we would like to also see a strategy that is more explicit in terms of accountability when it comes to mental health provision. My last point is to do with building capabilities in order to have a successful implementation. I appreciate that the strategy at the moment at times on capabilities is quite generic, and governance is one such area where it recognises that it wants a better and simpler decision-making process, so that, for example, there is a single point of contact, and from there the needs are smoothly attended and cared for anyone who presents with a health or a care issue. And so while it is recognised that we want a clear decision-making process, it is also recognised that we will have to put right governance in place, and it recognises that there will be a multiple provider or organisation involved in delivery, and therefore governance, it is more important. But it doesn't give the answers, it doesn't give perhaps even an inkling as to how this multi-organisation delivery will ultimately be accountable. So that concludes my comments on the summary that I sent in my letter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in my capacity as Chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board, I'll try and just touch on some of those points, all of which are completely valid. So the first piece of work was to engage widely in relation to the strategy, which has happened, and we'll discuss a little bit more about that when we get onto that item in the agenda. And then to identify the sort of the key priorities. The second stage of this work now is to set out how those priorities are going to be delivered and outcomes are going to be measured. And that is a fairly detailed piece of work, but is well underway and is looking at all of the existing structures that we have across this organisation and across our partnering organisations, with a view to trying to get as much of this work into the Health and Wellbeing Board. There will be effectively delivery boards that sit underneath each of these priority areas. So this isn't about creating or generating more committees or anything. It's about having effective mechanisms for delivering those outcomes. So that you see, my own view, I share the view that your committee expressed, which is that there should be a lead sponsor for each of those areas. Some of them, maybe that the police would be the appropriate authority to lead on it, or the NHS, or the CCG, or the ICP, or the county, and so on. So that we need to do, and there's an engagement piece at the moment of looking at how that would work. And then the third piece of that is absolutely about the accountability and the measurability of all of this. One of the, I think, perhaps issues that we've seen around looking at health and well-being generally is that we haven't measured outcomes. We haven't been able to point clearly to improvement in outcomes at the end of each year, and that's something I'm very keen that we should be able to do. I mean, that is what the board is there to oversee and to coordinate. So there will be measurements, there will be key performance indicators and so on, and I hope we will be able to see improvement in health and well-being across the piece. In terms of mental health, as you said, we passed at Council a strategy the other day in relation to children. It's a good strategy. I think it was well received across the Council. Mental health is a major issue in terms of if you like, the growth in the number of people that have some form of mental health condition, and that isn't just in the elderly in any sense. It's increasingly prevalent in young children and adolescents and so on. It runs all the way through this strategy, and I think what the idea was to try and get some broad themes on the basis that sitting underneath those will be more detailed strategies, and that being one the other day. It absolutely recognised that it is key to all of this. It's key to all of the work that is being done currently in children's services around early years and so on. We have to find ways in which we can help and support people and mechanisms for doing that. So it's certainly not lost and won't be lost in the broader strategy. It will come through as part of the next layer down in terms of the delivery boards. I think then, this is about collaborative and partnership working. This county council is working hard with Surrey Heartlands to create a framework of delivery, rather than simply talking about things. It's about doing things, and that I think is working well. The Health and Wellbeing Board membership has now been extended to include the local enterprise partnerships, the Surrey housing officers, the University of Surrey, and so on. So we've got a lot of key influencers that will participate in that board and will be there, therefore monitoring and overseeing the delivery of this health plan. So I think building capability, I think all of the issues you have raised absolutely are right there in terms of being at the front of what we need to make sure happens. This isn't just about having a strategy and a plan and putting it on the shelf. It's about a working, living document I very much welcome your committee's comments, and I hope that over the coming months and indeed years, you will continue to scrutinise what is happening, look at those outcomes, and if you feel that areas aren't being given sufficient priority, that you will raise those, and we will take that on board. Is there any other member of the Cabinet that wishes to add anything further? Yeah, Mary Lewis.
Only to say that it's really refreshing to find somebody coming from a scrutiny board and making these sort of challenging comments, and hope that everyone else lives up to your example. And the looking at scrutiny again, which a small working group has been doing, I think we should expect to have more of these challenges coming to each and every one of us at Cabinet meetings. So thank you for leading the way.
Thank you, Mary. May I just make a final comment? It is a plea in terms of sharing this with the public, because we are conscious that this will be published. Having seen previous drafts of the strategy, just as you have, and having had an opportunity to comment offline, as it were, on previous drafts, we as a committee found this draft far more readable than the first one. So I realise it is a living document, but by the time it comes to be finally endorsed by the Health and Wellbeing Board, I think it would be very valuable if references to those underlying strategies, which indeed the strategy for emotional well-being for young people acknowledges. It acknowledges there are 15 underlying strategies. I think it would be very helpful if somewhat that could be articulated, and also our ambition for accountability and measurable outcomes in a language and in a way that is easily shareable with the public. I think that would be very valuable. We were the first step, and we valued how much more readable it was compared to the previous versions. So I think we also had this plea that that trajectory continues. Thank you.
Well, I can assure you, so I can understand, it's going to have to be in easy language as well. So it's a fair point, and as you say, the version that's gone out for engagement is much more resident friendly, and we'll make sure that going forward that remains so, and improve wherever possible. Thank you very much. Item 6 is any individual decision making from Cabinet, and there are two items. One was the Denise Turner-Stewart, which related to the Surrey Fire and Rescue Service Statement of Assurance. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Thank you. This is a document which enables the public to navigate their way around the provision that we provide in order to keep the public safe. So I hope that it's accessed as much as possible, and it's in line with the revised Fire and Rescue National Framework for England. Thank you.
And the other was Mike Goodman on the adoption of the High World.
Yes, so this is the High World Outstanding Area of Natural Beauty. We are part of it, and we've adopted their plan. Surrey are at the moment out to look at their own plan for the next 5 years, so that will come to Cabinet probably in January or February next year. But this is a High Will one.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on then to item 7, which is the Children's Improvement Update. Mary Lewis.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to bring this report to Cabinet because the Cabinet and the Council have recognised the improvement of children's services as being a critical priority for the Council, and therefore obviously the Cabinet want to keep track and have regular reports. The Cabinet's made it very clear that their expectation is that we're on a journey to excellence, and so keeping up monitoring the reports is all really important to ensure that we have the right momentum behind this whole project. I'd like to draw the Cabinet's attention to the chart which runs across page 6 and page 7, because that lays out some key dates for children's services improvement. And down the right hand side of the chart you will see that the Ofsted Priority Action Board is shown as continuing to be running throughout the period shown on the chart, and the Ofsted Priority Action Board is specifically looking at how we are doing against those actions that were mentioned in the Ofsted inspection about a year ago now, and that is going alongside all the various visits and opportunities for feedback that are detailed in the rest of the chart. So the Cabinet will recall that the Children's Commissioner's visit in September, which is shown on the chart, at the end of that visit the Commissioner concluded that Surrey County Council had a sound plan for improving children's services and recommended to the Minister that the County Council retained responsibility for its children's services, but that the Commissioner and his team would return several times in the following year to make sure that the plan was being implemented effectively. And the Minister accepted this recommendation. Now, the Commissioner's report and the Minister's response are given in full at Annex 1 to the report. This particular report that I'm about to present to you now was requested by the Cabinet to come at this time, March 2019, because what you were asking for was a report on the progress up to March 2019 and to be assured that the service was prepared for the Commissioner's revisit in April and that the Commissioner would really be able to clearly see that improvements had been made. So the recommendation in this report is that you're going to be asked to acknowledge the progress on the transformation of children's services, to support the new structure and the improvement work, and to agree to a continual reporting programme. Enable you to agree to these recommendations, I need to draw out from the report of examples of progress that's been made and indicate what the Commissioner will therefore see differently and better on the ground during the visit in April, and also perhaps to give you some examples of externally validated evidence of progress to really reinforce that assurance. So those are the things I'm going to do. I'm going to draw out some examples for you of improvement. So one thing that I think is really crucial in our improvement journey is to reshape the whole service. The first and second phases of the restructure have already been completed, with directors, assistant directors and service managers being in place in the new structure, and the third phase is on track for completion in April. So it was made clear to us that it was essential that we really looked at our structure, that we brought in some interims to support us, to get going on the improvement, and that is really well on track now for completion in April. It's also really important that culture and practice change, and our whole social work practice model will be changing, and that will be ready to start in April when the new structure is in place. But we're not just waiting for the end of April for that. So the building blocks to the new practice model of family safeguarding have begun to happen. And crucial amongst those is interview training, motivational interviewing training, and that's the method of practice that will be used and on which family safeguarding is built. So it's even filtered down to me, leader. I attended motivational interviewing training along with senior leaders from across the Directorate, but this has also been offered to partners, and we're really keen that we're all going to be using the same form of practice in different aspects of the service and with our partners. The Department of Education strongly supports this new model. Another key milestone was that through this Surrey Safeguarding Children's Board, which has in itself got a new independent chair and is really becoming much more focused on supporting the safeguarding work, the Effective Family Resilience Levels of Need document was agreed across the partnership. This is a crucial document that enables partners to act together as soon as problems emerge, enabling families to become more resilient and to keep children safely within their own families. It's hard to underestimate how significant as a culture change this is, and it would be true to say it's just beginning to hit home with partners, voluntary community sector, education, health, everybody, police, just how different that's going to be and how much of a change it will be in the way they all work, as well as our social workers. And so that's something we're not waiting, is the point I'm making. We're not waiting. That's already the levels of need documents been agreed, and people are beginning to prepare for this significant change. So in the context of all needing to work very, very differently, the setting up of the Surrey Children's Services Academy in January is another significant move. This brings together learning and development across all the services and agencies working with children and young people. It's a national first, both in its scale and its ambition, and it's also being partly funded by health. The relationship with regional and national experts, which it will maintain, is really crucial, because we were told that in the past we've been much too insular, but now we're bringing the learning from national and regional experts into Surrey on a continuing basis. And with all the children's workforce training together initially and throughout their careers, we can expect a much more integrated workforce, a much more consistent method of practice, as I've described earlier, and just basically more camaraderie across the children's workforce, which will all make things more secure for children, because people will know who to go to in order to make that consistency and really solid safeguarding. There are new children's social work practice standards which have been launched, which clearly set out the minimum practice expectations. They're very, very clear, and I think that will also support the practice change and the culture change. So these are just sort of tasters, if you like, of all the things that are happening that are different and are leading to a vastly improved service, things that the Commissioner will already be able to see on the ground when he and his team come in April. I thought I should also, as I said at the beginning, mention some externally validated improvements, rather than just things that I'm telling you about and that we've done, as it were. So attached as Appendix 3 is the report from Ofsted based on their monitoring visit in January. This was a themed monitoring visit, so not as holistic as the Commissioner's visit will be. It was themed particularly on the way we look after children once they come into our care. But even so, you can draw out from that some very specific improvements. Well, I should say, first of all, first and most importantly, they didn't find any unsafe practice, and they said that we were running a safe service. So that's your bottom line assurance, if you like. But obviously we want to be much better than that. And of particular interest to the inspectors, on page 6, which is towards the end of their report, the local, page 36, did I say? The local authority has a more realistic and informed understanding of its performance and progress through a comprehensive, closely monitored improvement plan, good, and improved quality assurance and auditing programmes, also good. A learning culture is emerging across the county, which is really important to make sure our practice improves, alongside explicit requirements for social workers, as I mentioned earlier, the new social work standards, and for their supervisors to meet improved practice standards. A recently introduced auditing framework is providing senior managers with a more assured evaluation of good social work practice, enhancing first-line managers' ability to benchmark good practice. So these are all signs and signals that things are improving, things that are happening and things that have been noted by external regulators. I want to also make it really clear to everyone that this is the first signs. We are still at the beginning of an improvement journey, and we don't want to sort of rush into saying that everything's great because of these things being put in place. These are the foundation stones, which are absolutely crucial, but then we need to build on them so that everybody, every child, gets really good service from our children's services, that we can be really confident that day by day, week in, week out, month in, month out, we're delivering really good quality service, and that eventually we'll be recognised as being excellent, which I said at the beginning is our aim. A final thing that I think it is important to mention: it was really difficult to read the Ofsted report a year ago, and particularly the opening sentence, which said that members, all of us and the others on the council, and senior officers had not taken seriously enough the improvement that was needed. And whilst a lot of work had gone on, we hadn't had the impact that was required on the services. So it's really good to see as the final paragraph some acknowledgement that the Corporate Parenting Board, which is members working together with partners like foster carers and others, that the changes that have been made to the Corporate Parenting Board have had a beneficial effect, and it finally says this demonstrates stronger senior political and management engagement. So you get the feeling throughout the report, and particularly on that final sentence, that we aren't anywhere in the place that we were a year ago, that now people can see on the ground, they can quantify, and they can recognise through the general ethos of the place that everybody is taking this to be what I said at the beginning, which was a critical priority for the Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Julie.
Mary, you mentioned that the new model of social work practice that we'll be using from April is called family safeguarding. I'd just like to understand the reasons behind choosing that model.
Thank you. Good question. The difficulty in children's social care is evidencing things that work. There are a lot of things that are being done and people have the feeling that they work, but very few programmes that actually have an evidence base to show they work, that they work at keeping children more safely in their homes, that fewer children come into the care of the county council, more children are helped early on, families and children are helped early on when needs emerge, and that this has a beneficial effect to their life rather than waiting for a crisis to happen. And family safeguarding has been acknowledged by the Department for Education to be one of those few things that has an evidence base behind it, that it works. It was introduced first in Hertfordshire County Council, and we have Sue Williams from Hertfordshire working with us here on introducing it in our county. But in between times it's been introduced in 4 other smaller authorities as well, and it's been successful in all of those places. So the DFE are looking to roll this out nationally as a nationally recognised programme. And one of the principles of our children's services improvement is that we will look at best practice elsewhere, evidence-based good practice, and we will use those models in our improvement journey, which is something we hadn't done in the past.
Sinead.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is more of a comment, really. I think this report is a very positive report. I think it shows that, yes, there is a long way to go, but positive steps moving forwards are really being taken. And I think the message that comes out really loudly and clearly is that there is a very strong commitment from the Council to improving Surrey's children's services, and it's almost a palpable taste, if you like, really, within the officers and the members here. So I just wanted to just let you know that I feel this is extremely positive.
Thank you. Well, Sinead, your portfolio is adult social care. Before we came to this meeting, we were at a meeting on SEND, and there was a question being asked. And one of the answers to the question was, we are picking up and building on and using good practice in adult social care, our own internal good practice being used in children's. I can see much more council collaboration which is supporting this improvement, and I think that's really important, as it was evidence that it struck me at that meeting that this was something that told us that the silos were breaking down, and I think that it's true that across the council people are really everybody working together to make sure that, I'm not saying it's all perfect yet, there are lots of things that we we all need, we haven't got to nirvana, but we are intensely conscious that in the past we worked in silos, and it was really good to hear some evidence of that not being the case now, and I think that supports the improvement. Thank you.
Indeed, and I think it's good to see that we are making progress, and all credit to Dave Hill and his team for all of the work that they're doing, and I know will do, completely focused on getting us to an excellent rating. I think there are just a couple of things that I wanted to just repeat in a sense. I mean, I think that the self-audit process is excellent. I think if we know what we're doing wrong before we're told we're getting it wrong, there's every chance we'll get it right. So I think that's a really good step forward. We are absolutely, as an officer and political leadership here, taking this issue seriously. Nobody is going to allow us to have a further Ofsted review as we have in the past. So I think, and it's good to see, as you said, that Ofsted are recognising that change, and that's encouraging. And the last thing I think, which is a really positive, is the Surrey Children's Services Academy. I think that demonstrates that we are investing and will invest in our staff for the long term. I think that'll be a great way of training and bringing people into the service and continuing to train them as they develop in those roles. So thank you very much. It's very good.
I was going to say we have always had problems with recruitment and retention. That's one of the difficulties when you're deemed to be inadequate. And I think this is something that will really encourage people to come and work here. It's groundbreaking. That combined with the fact we're rolling out family resilience, family safeguarding, there'll be two key reasons for people to come here and to stay here, because it will be offering them something different for their career.
I too welcome the report, but there was one particular feeling that I got from the past that I'd just like to ask about. But correct me if I'm wrong, some of the recent critical reports of children's services in Surrey were critical of all of the agencies, sort of everybody involved, and not just the county council. So does this report reflect that a coming together of the different agencies? Are we all working together now to achieve the improvements together?
Thank you. It's a good question. Well, the chart on page 6 and 7 shows where the county council comes under the scrutiny of our regulators. But it is absolutely true that even if the county council's children's services were perfect in everything they did, it still wouldn't be a good service for children on the ground, because we can only make this work if our partners are working with us, and our partners are at the moment supportive of our improvement and then continue to work with us on an ongoing basis. So yes, you're right. Although the subject of these reports is the county council, really it's everyone in the county. It's a county-wide system that needs to work better for children, and we are finding that our partners are getting on board with us on the improvement journey.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So building on that, we've got the next item, item 8, which is a request for delegated authority in relation to family centres. So
excuse me, Leader, I think we need to do the recommendations.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes. Sorry, I'm rather assuming that we're all in favour of those. Yeah, I want to get a nudge from my right here. So there are two recommendations. See, I'm a novice at this. Two recommendations. That one is that the Cabinet acknowledges the progress that has been made, and secondly, that the Cabinet has a further review on the implementation, and the dates are set out in the report. Are both of those recommendations agreed? Can you put your hands up there? Thank you very much. Right, now we will move on to item 8. Which, as I said, is a further step in the remodelling and the refocusing of the children's services. To remind you, this was following a review of the children's centres and with the intention of moving the resource out of buildings into the community and into the homes of those that need us the most. There will be at least one main centre in each of the districts and boroughs, and there will be some satellite centres, and of course there'll be outreach workers and community venues. We want to move on with that restructuring at pace, and we don't want the governance structure here to hold that up, and that is the primary reason for seeking delegated authority. We want to get our social workers into those homes of those families and do the work that they need to do, rather than spend that money on buildings. So unless anybody wants to discuss this in detail, you can ask a question. Yeah.
Just a question. Totally support the paper and where this is going. Yeah, I'm switched on. One of the questions I was going to ask is, part of this work is obviously we've identified that many of the services that are being delivered within the children's centres are delivered by voluntary and health partners, and part of that work was going to be engaging with them and the boroughs and districts about making sure that work is continuing to be delivered within the communities. And I just wanted a bit of an update and make sure that that work is continuing, and any feedback on that engagement.
Yes, the work is continuing. In some districts and boroughs, the situation is settled and we've got the provider in place. In some, that's still a work in progress.
Yes, I think that's picked up at point 2 under the family centre implementation. But yeah, those conversations will hopefully get to a landing, all of them, in the near future. So there is one recommendation which I'll read. It's recommended that that authority is delegated to the Executive Director for Children, Families and Learning in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Children, Young People and Families to award contracts to lead providers in each borough or district for the provision of family centres for up to 5 years. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Item 9 then relates to the Hillside Resource Centre residential care home. Sinead?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be as succinct as I possibly can. So this report sets out a range of issues in regards to Hillside Resource Centre in Camberley. Clear reference is made within the report to the fact that the most important matter is to make sure that the people who are receiving care continue to receive the very best care. There is a concern in regards to the building and the layout of Hillside Resource Centre that can be met. Parts of the building at Hillside are inaccessible for people with mobility issues, and the building is also hard to adapt. As well as this, the design of the building goes against current national policy for this vulnerable client group. Consultation has been thorough, both with staff, residents and their family members, and general feedback is that all parties are feeling well informed. Positive feedback has been received from those residents that have already moved on from Hillside, and officers are committed to ensuring a seamless transfer for the current residents into the local area, as this will be a benefit to them both on an economic level and also on a social level, as they will continue to be close to their families and friends and also be an integral part of the wider community. With this in mind, Chairman, I am pleased therefore to support the recommendations set out on page 43 of this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Charlotte Morley.
Thank you. I'd like to say how pleased I am that some of the former Hillside residents now live within my division and that they continue to be within walking distance of Camberley Town Centre. My fellow Camberley County Councillor, in whose division Hillside falls, has asked me to pass on his thanks to Chris Hastings on all that he's done to demonstrate to the parents and residents of Hillside House that the County Council will take really good care of the residents as they move out of Hillside House into more suitable accommodation and care. He's done a really great job in winning the trust of the parents. And I would just like to ask for further assurances that all those current Hillside residents who want to stay in Camberley can do so, because they are part of our community and regularly visit the town centre of Camberley, and I've seen them there, and I know that they are involved with the local churches and things and lots of groups, so we'd like them to be able to continue to do that into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other? Natalie.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to reassure members that this property will be assessed for its future use and a full options appraisal will come forward for decision. I'd also like to confirm that another former care home in Faulkner Road, Farnham, known as Cobgates, has moved over to our development joint venture with partners, coming forward for a full development appraisal, including residential options.
And I think the important thing about this is that when those residents move, they will move to a better environment than the one that they're leaving. Okay, so let's see what the... So there are 3 recommendations. That first one is to the current residents are supported to move to alternative services. Appropriate arrangements, alternative arrangements made for those who use the short service break at Hillside. Secondly, there's a full staff consultation, and thirdly, that once Hillside is closed, care and support will no longer be provided from this site, and of course then we will make sure that we use this site for we will make sure that we identify the future use of this site as soon as we can. Are those 3 recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. So we then move on to item 10, which is the Surrey Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy, and we've already had an opportunity to hear the views of the Select Committee. And I'm not going to speak at this at length. Anybody who wants to come and hear about it, they can come to the Health and Wellbeing Board next month, where hopefully the plan will be signed off. I think there are a few points I'd like to make, though. That this plan is absolutely about prevention. It is about helping people not to fall into chronic conditions. I will remind you of my favourite set of statistics, which is that 30% of the health outcomes, your health outcomes, wider determinants of health, are to do with your own lifestyle choices. It's what you eat, what you drink, what you smoke, whether you exercise, and so on. 20% of health outcomes are as a consequence of medical interventions. So that's your GP services, your primary care services, and those at hospital. And the other 50% are all around the environment and housing and so on. Things that this council and the district and borough councils and the parish councils can absolutely influence. And that is why we are working as a county authority in an ever-increasingly close relationship with Surrey Heartlands, the NHS, to deliver those outcomes. We cannot do it on our own, and indeed nor can they. So the plan walks through some of those issues. It identifies what are considered to be the current areas that need focus on in terms of time and money. It is about helping people to lead healthy lives, good emotional well-being, and indeed fulfilling their potential, which is completely consistent with our 2030 vision that no one is left behind, that everybody has an equal opportunity, and so on. The report sets out some more detail around that. There is work to be done, as I've mentioned in response to Dr. Grant Duff's comments about how we get this delivered and how we measure that delivery. And part of that is around the proposed establishment of a committee in common. So at the moment, the way in which services are commissioned could be described as a bit haphazard. It's done in different ways across the CCGs and across the county. And what we want to do is very much to have a strategic commissioning approach to those services. So this proposes that we establish a committee which comprises the County Council and currently the 6 clinical commissioning groups. As you know, Surrey Heartlands at the moment speaks for about 800 or 850,000 of the residents of Surrey, with East Surrey CCG on one side and Frimley on the other side. And a lot of work is being done in discussions with those those two organisations around how we can make sure that this plan is delivered for all Surrey residents and not just those in Surrey Heartlands. To make sure that we work at pace, the idea is to have a cabinet subgroup comprised of currently the leader of the council, the cabinet member for adults and public health, and the cabinet member for children, young people and families. Those three portfolios, I think, will ensure that this council is properly represented in terms of the issues that need to be looked at, and will have delegated authority from this cabinet to have those conversations with the CCGs. That will result in some changes to the Constitution, which the Director of Law and Governance hopefully will be able to pick up. So at one level, it's simply a structural change, but actually that belies what sits underneath this, which is a Surrey-wide strategy and then a governance structure that will be able to work at pace. We won't have to go through each of the individual systems to get decisions and to implement them. Has anybody any questions or comments? Mike Goodman.
Yes, I think it's very interesting statistics you gave, where you said 50% is your environment, really, that affects your health. And I think that's really quite sobering, and I think this council should be pleased but not taking it for granted that we are doing a lot for the environment. And I'll just quote two things. The work we're doing at the moment on the countryside in ensuring that we are protected, so we encourage more and more people to go into the countryside, particularly the elderly and the young, will benefit enormously, and I'm looking forward to this 25-year study coming out. So I see that as a real benefit to our residents. And the other one will be the low emissions and air quality. We have a lot more to do on low emissions, we accept that, and as I said on Tuesday, our own emissions have decreased by 60% since 2009, but we do take on we need to do more, and I'm pleased that we're now working on our next 5-year strategy. And the air quality does affect the health of our residents, and the statistics show 35 to 40,000 people per year die, partly due to the air quality that they breathe. And I think it's right that we do tackle this issue, and I think we've done a lot of work. We've got more to do, and I accept that, but I do believe this is a really important piece of work that we'll be doing, and I hope that when the board meet, they will recognise that some of these strategies are important to councils to do, that you should take on. And I'm looking forward to these particular two strands that if you had said to me 3 or 4 years ago, well, this is important to health, I wouldn't have seen it, but I've seen how important it is. And people have said to me, particularly after Tuesday, we know you've got a long way to go on air quality, but at least you recognise it and you're working towards improving it, and that's really important.
Thank you, Mike. Julie.
Thank you, Leader. It's in line with the 2030 vision, and I just really want to look at page 99, where I'm very pleased to see that we specifically mention one of the groups of population that could be left behind, the children with special education needs and disabilities. Dr. Grant Duff talked about an unprecedented piece of joint working on this, and it speaks to our transformation programme in that area as well, where it is all focused on early intervention. It needs input from our partners in the schools, from our health partners, and we bring all of that together into our SEND Partnership Board, where we are holding people to account for delivery and being part of this transformation. So I'm very pleased to see this developing on it.
Thank you. Denise.
Thank you, Leader. Just from a community safety perspective, we are working increasingly closely with public health on looking at serious violence and youth crime, and the reference to the support for mental health within this strategy, and the fact that you're looking to have this as a delivery model as opposed to a monitoring model, I think will absolutely push that agenda forward, and we're working closely with Surrey Police and the Police and Crime Commission on that, so I welcome this strategy. Thank you.
Mary.
Thank you. Building on really what the others have said, but referring this to our transformation programmes more widely across the Council, when the Change Management Board met this week to prioritise what were the key transformation programmes out of the 27 things that are happening in the Council, all of the ones that came out at Group A, large-scale delivery priorities, SEND, family resilience, adult social care, practice improvement, adult social care, market management, all-age learning disabilities, all of those require us working more closely with health. And the fact that we're going to be having these new arrangements, I think, that are as part of this strategy, will really support all of those things that the Council really needs to do to make it a healthy and modern and, well, for its survival, really. So I think that the health and wellbeing strategy is really crucial to everything that we're trying to do in transformation.
And I think, just a key point around this is that has been the extent of the collaboration already to get to this point where we have a plan that all of the key stakeholders agree on, actually. So now it is all about the delivery. There are 5 recommendations. I won't read those out, but are those agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 11. Charlotte. Building maintenance projects, statutory building maintenance and responsive building repairs, hard facilities management. Off you go.
I know how much you all enjoy my procurement reports. This one puts in place some term maintenance contracts to allow us to undertake the maintenance and repair of our buildings, and also some framework agreements which we can use for the planned maintenance, and we can actually run a mini competition. So this procurement should allow us to get the best value for our residents in keeping our assets and buildings up to a good state of repair. And also you will note that from the companies that are listed, that a number of them are locally based, so that we will be providing local employment, which I think should be welcomed. So I'd like to recommend that this procurement goes ahead.
Mary.
Well, I'd like to resist the humour, really, because although Charlotte's reports never seem to have very sexy titles, as a local member, one of the things that really annoys our residents more than anything is how long it takes, or how difficult it is sometimes to get basic maintenance done on a youth club or a library or some other building locally. And so I think that this is very important to our residents, people that are tenants in our buildings, services that are in the buildings, and I would like to thank Charlotte for rising above the derision and for presenting this to us.
Don't get me wrong, I love Charlotte's portfolio. Yeah. There are 2 recommendations. One is to approve the award of contracts, and the other is to delegate authorities. Are those agreed? Thank you very much. Item 12. Now this is to do with Ray Park and the relocation of the Surrey Fire and Rescue Service. Denise.
Thank you, Leader. This report details the proposed upgrade and relocation re-provision of Surrey Fire and Rescue functions, which are currently delivered from the headquarters at Ray Park in Reigate, where Surrey Fire and Rescue Service have operated from since the 1950s. Cabinet is being asked to agree a sum of £13.8 million in the capital programme for budgeting purposes only. This will enable the relocation and re-provision of the headquarters, central training and development function, central vehicle workshop and stores, and the refurbishment of Reigate Fire Station, which will remain operational and will be upgraded on site. Surrey Fire and Rescue Service were awarded a fire transformation grant from the Home Office with East and West Sussex, and in collaboration with Surrey and Sussex Police and CCAM, for an integrated transport function programme bringing together workshops, fuel management, vehicle telematics and cameras, management and administration, joint procurement and ICT and finance. So agreement of these recommendations will enable this collaboration programme to progress. So this will be the first phase in the next level of collaborative opportunities with our Blue Light partners, and we will be relocating our training and development facility to deliver modern facilities as part of a major emergency service collaboration programme. Interest has been registered by Surrey and Sussex Police, East and West Sussex Fire and Rescue Services and Gatwick Airport Fire Service in this proposed new state-of-the-art training facility. Reigate Fire Station will be refurbished and upgraded and will incorporate an alternative 999 mobilising control centre and a secondary County Gold Command facility to meet the requirements of the Civil Contingencies Act. The central administrative function will be incorporated into the Surrey Fire and Rescue Service estate and will occupy underutilised space at fire stations. So subject to a full business case and report to Cabinet, if agreed, work on the integrated transport function programme will commence this summer and completion is anticipated in summer 2020. Following the design work for the upgrade and refurbishment of Reigate Fire Station, construction work should commence in early 2020 and Ray Park will be offered for sale on the open market and a report will come back to Cabinet for decision. So the recommendations are set out on page 134 with a breakdown of the capital and revenue required and delegating authority to the leader, director and cabinet member to develop detailed proposals for the workshop, training facility and fire station. So this is an opportunity to co-locate with our blue light partners and will drive further service improvements and will reduce costs, enabling us to continue to invest in equipment and technology and facilities that meets the needs of our firefighters and a modern fire and rescue service.
And I do think this is an excellent example of public services working closely together, not just to deliver a financial benefit to our residents, but also to keep them safe. So I think there's some excellent work that has been done to get us to this point. There's still more to do, but it's a very good step in the right direction. Colin.
Yeah, really happy to see this paper come forward. I think this is an item that we've been talking about for quite a long time. So congratulations to the new senior leadership team at Surrey Fire and Rescue, along with the Cabinet member, and the work that's been put into this, along with Surrey officers, to actually bring this forward. This paper starts the work about a modern fire service that is organised and driven by firefighters and the leadership within the fire service. And I'm really pleased to see this. And the collaboration point, as you mentioned, Leader, about local authorities working together, cross blue light services working together to actually make an efficient service that is fit for purpose in a modern day society, I think is a commendable piece of work. And I'm really pleased to see this work at last being started.
Yeah, sorry, Denise.
I think it's important to state that this has been a real combined effort. I mean, you've all driven really hard to get us to where we are today with this, so we're all very proud of this report. And just finally, at 34 there was a word missing, so it reads the need to secure political approval for all associated permissions, and it should say including contracts, just in case anybody picks that up. Thank you.
Okay, well I think most of us are familiar with the proposals here, and there are three main recommendations. Again, I won't read them out, they're set out in the paper. Are those agreed? Thank you very much. We will then take item 13, which is the Finance and Budget Monitoring Report to 31st January 2019. Mal.
Thank you. This report covers the year-to-date to January, which is period 10 in my mind. The progress to a balanced budget outturn without the need to use reserves for the year continues, with this month reflecting an improvement versus prior month of 3.3 million, leaving us only 1.3 million to the end of the financial year to go without the need to use reserves, which would be a great achievement. The report details the progress made by each service where, with 2 months to go, we're within striking distance of achieving that objective. Thanks to the mid-year action taken in driving the additional savings targets of 10.5 million, which then pushed the total savings required for the year of 106 million, which itself is a phenomenal achievement by getting within, at this stage, getting in with 1.3 million to go. So I compliment everybody that's been involved in driving these savings through the corporation. As the report will show, the main drivers for this month's improvements are adult social care, which is again reporting a further improvement in the month from prior month's outlook of 4.4 million, and other services reporting an improvement of roughly about 1 million. going further. These unfortunately favourables offset a further adverse movement in the SEND results for the month of about 1.3 million. Table 2 sets out the capital expenditure for the year and reflects an underspend for the year at 10.6 million. Turning to the recommendations, the Cabinet is now asked to note the Council's overall revenue and capital position at the end of period 10, and I'm prepared to ask any other questions.
It would be disappointing when we come to look at the roles and responsibilities in the Cabinet in May if we haven't achieved a balanced budget. So I'm sure we can take your positive comments as an indicator that we will get there. Wyatt.
Thank you, Leader. I'm really pleased that the financial numbers are going the way they are. Clearly that means we've got the money now to fund, do the good things that we all want to do. And of course it's... I wasn't going to exclude Mel from that statement, but it's in the hands of the rest of us how we do on that expenditure, not just Mel, Leader. I hope you would agree.
Colin?
Yeah, and looking at the recommendations, you feel like you're approving recommendations that we at least understand now. I think the work that's gone in between the finance team under Lee and obviously the hard work that Mel's put in working with the cabinet team and the finance team in actually bringing forward a set of figures that is starting to show light. We understand the journey we're on. Still some challenges, and I'm not going to offer to spend money for you, Mel, so don't worry about that. But I just wanted to commend the work that's gone into this. And we really feel like we're understanding the financial position, understanding the journey we're on, and actually it looks good for next year that we understand a true understanding of the challenges we've got to meet next year. And it gives confidence that actually we go through next year that we will be able to monitor that journey with an ounce of confidence.
Thank you. This is just warming you all up for the next year where we have to find £82 million savings.
I think to have set a target of 200 million of savings over 2 years was ambitious. I think there were many people that didn't think we would be able to deliver that, and to have got to this point where we will have delivered the 106 million for this year is absolutely a testament to everybody involved in that process. Lee has brought, with Mel, greater clarity, considerably greater clarity to the state of our finances, which is helpful in that there are no surprises, but it is the services and the executive directors that have driven those transformation programmes so effectively. I think if we can get to the point at the end of this next financial year, having delivered the 82 million, we will then have a council and a budget that we can live and work within. And that is the driver, to get to a balanced state, and indeed, as I have said at council, to not assume that we have to put up the council tax to any cap that the government sets. That has to be and is a key ambition of ours. This next year will be about finishing off that transformation work to get us into a steady state, and then I think we can look back with a degree of satisfaction having achieved that, but in no sense any complacency, and make sure that we can continue to deliver the value for money to our residents. There are 2 recommendations. Are those both agreed? Thank you very much. The last item is item 14, which is Brexit. Colin, you're going to give a verbal update?
Obviously not much more to say as we still wait for a definitive. While we've been sitting for the meeting, I've been keeping an eye on BBC News and Rebecca's tweet line just to see if there's any latest updates, but nothing new has come through while we've been sitting here. At the moment, the work continues with the individual partners around our strategy going forward. The weekly phone calls are going on, but until we have a clear, definitive way of what exactly is going to happen and what it's going to look like, it's really difficult to start that work. So we would continue with the liaison, we will continue with being ready for whatever comes our way, and we will again see what comes forward by the next cabinet meeting.
Well, I'm confident by the 30th of April it will all be sorted out. That brings us to the end of the public part of this agenda, so thank you all very much for attending.